Today I want to set up CI/CD. First, I have to share the screen. We have our Android devs application on GitHub. So this one we want to deploy to Google Play, and we want to set up continuous integration for it. So how we are going to do that? If we go to the actions here, there is nothing yet configured. The way the actions are working is that in the project itself, we have to define a folder. So if I open the project here, we don't have that folder yet. So we are going to go ahead and create it. So first things first, here I'm going to create a new directory, and I'm going to call it .github. Why dot? It doesn't need to be public or something. To warm up a little bit ourselves, first we are going to create a script to run the tests when we open a pull request. To be able to test it, I'm going to create here a branch. Let's say GitHub Actions. And then when I push this branch and make a pull request against main, we'll be able to see whether that script is going to work. So here we have to specify one more directory, which is workflows. And now inside we can write, the idea is that we write YAML scripts, and those YAML scripts are actually going to execute based on what's the content inside them. So first of all, I'm going to create a script for running my tests. So let's say pull request YAML. This is our first script. We can define a name for it. We can say run tests. First, we have to define when this script is going to run. So to do that, we have to call the on. And then what's very important when we are working with YAML scripts is the indentation. It works similarly what you have in Python, for example. So indentation is very important. So here we want to run this on pull request. And then here we can define to which branches. So I can define here an array of branches. So basically I want against main branch. So when there is a pull request against main, like I can define as many branches as I want here. But for now I do have only one branch, which is main. So when there is a pull request on main, I want to run something. So that's when the script is gonna run. Now let's define what we are gonna be doing. So here we can define jobs. First we want to set up a build, and we have to define what we are going to be running that on. Something like an OS or a container where everything's going to be running. Usually we choose Ubuntu. So here we can say runs on Ubuntu latest. Now that we have that, we have to define here what are going to be the steps. So we have defined where we are going to run our job. It's going to be Ubuntu latest. And then what are the steps that we want to perform? So first of all, we want to check out. We want to check out the code. Let's imagine a virtual machine or a container when it's up and running. What are the steps? First, we want to check out the code. So here we have to define what we are going to use to perform something. To do that, we have to use the uses keyword. So here we are going to use an action. Checkout v4. So by using the actions /checkout v4, that's the action that we're going to use to check out the code, basically. And these actions are something that is predefined in the GitHub Actions. And we are going to see down the script how we are going to use different actions that are not predefined or from somewhere else. But usually those are registered, and then we can just use some sort of domain / what's the action that we are going to use. Then we can also add names for the things that we want to do. Next, we want to set up Java. Let's say we are going to use JDK 17. Here again, we are going to use actions setup Java, and then also version. We are going to use v4. And then we have to also define what distribution. I think that's the right wording. Here we have to put, I don't know why this, but it's sort of predefined. And basically it has to match the Java name with the Java version. So yeah, this is sort of predefined, and we have to just insert it here. The Java version, because we are going to use 17, we have to also define 17 here. If we want to perform something with cache, we can just say that we are going to be operating with Gradle, and then it will know how to cache. Okay, that's about the Java setup. Next, let's define, we want to use in order to run the tests, we have to execute a command on Gradle wrapper, which is Gradle v. So we have to first grant access or grant permissions to this file to be able to run. Maybe we can skip this step, I don't know, but usually I do this so that I'm sure that the Gradle w that file is going to have the right permissions to actually execute. So I'm going to name this grant execute permissions for Gradle v. So that's the name, and we are going to see why this name is important. When we run the script, it shows nicely the names, like which step is currently executing. Then what we are going to do, we are going to run a command, this is a shell command, basically. We want to grant permissions, so we are going to use chmod +x to Gradle w. And finally, we are going to run the tests. And again, we are going to run a command, which is Gradle clean test debug, for example. So our script seems correct. I hope I don't have any mistakes in the indentation. Now what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to say introduced, I'm committing now, introduced pull request checks. I'm going to push this. And now if I go back to our repository here, it says that I have pushed new branch, but the actions is still, there is nothing in here. Now if I do open a pull request, okay, typo there, and create this pull request, now there should be an action pending and actually executing. And now if I click on this, it tells the steps. You see these names that we are having here, like run unit test, grant execute permissions, set up SDK. So those are the names that we have added in our script. So far, so good. So we are gonna wait now for the tests to execute. And when they are done, when this job is done, it's gonna be green. And if we go, well, if the tests are passing, basically, I hope they are, because we do have quite some tests, I think, in this project. And then we are gonna see here, you see there is this little indicator saying that for this pull request, there is some action running. And indeed, in the details, it tells what is the action that is being run. And we can make it, you know, in a sense that we are gonna prevent merges before the action is completed. Now, while we are waiting for this, we have to do a little preparation for the other script, which is going to do the automated deployments. Basically, there are several things that we have to take in consideration before we actually start doing something. That is, first, we have to define a key store for signing if you don't have an existing key store, because if you do have an existing key store, what we can do is we can create additional alias for the new application in the existing key store with additional password and then use that. Or we can define a new key store with an alias specified for this application, which is something that we are going to do now, because I don't want to interfere my current key stores with this one, because I'm doing a screen share, it might get compromised. And when we have that completed, we also have to make one deployment manually on Google Play. The first deployment has to happen manually because we have to create an application on Google Play, like define the package name and everything. When we have that, we have to make the initial deployment manually. So let's actually work on that now while this is running. So back to my studio, what I'm gonna do is here, I'm gonna say generate signed. Now we are gonna use bundles. We're gonna work with bundles. So let's click next. And here in this window is the place where we can choose an existing key store if we have one, or create a key store. Right now, I'm gonna create a new one. Key store path. Let's define this into a folder that we are gonna know during this whole setup. I have prepared a folder in my desktop, Android Devs. It is empty for now, so let's choose this one. Instead of untitled here, I'm gonna name this Android Devs key store. Then we have to define password. Before writing a password and closing this window, we want to save this password because we need to also add that later in GitHub. So let's pull up some sort of node application. Here we go. CI/CD setup. Now, key store password. Let's say that this is gonna be Android Devs. So here I'm gonna put that password and I'm gonna confirm it. As of alias, let's also put here key alias. The alias is gonna be, let's say, Android Devs. That's our application. We have to associate one key with one application. And here, usually I use the same name, Android Devs application, Android Devs key. We also need password for that one. Key pass. Use the same password. Key. Then maybe 1, 2. Doesn't matter. This is just an example. And paste it here. Validity years. Put whatever feels good for you. First and last name. These, I think we don't need to set up everything. We can leave some of those empty and it's gonna be okay. Like organization unit, organization, all that is good. So we can do this. Cool. Now everything is filled up for us. And I'm gonna go ahead and click next. I need a release. So let's go ahead and create it. Meanwhile, let's see how is our action going. So now my merge is allowed because the action passed probably. If I open, it says green, all good. And if I open the details here, because I have set in the script to print out the results of all the tests, if I scroll enough, it's gonna tell all the tests that it ran and it shows that they have passed. So we are good to go to merge. So let's go back to our pull requests and merge this one. I prefer to do rebase and merge. I'm gonna have a straight line. And I will delete the original branch. Cool, back to my code. Now let's actually go back to main. and delete this branch. We no longer need it. Now I see that the build has passed and there is app release created. Let me open Studio. And as I mentioned, there is a release folder in the app, in the main module basically. And here is our bundle. So we have to deploy this one to Google Play manually first. Let me first pull this. And actually, I'm going to insert this into the folder that we were working with. I'm going to put it inside. Now here we have the key store and the AAB. Now let's go ahead and proceed with the other script and then do the Google Play and the other setup. So new file, release to, or just release. I can't do that. I have to make it release YAML. I have to give it an extension. We can do the same that we have here. We are going to put a name. Deploy to Google Play. And by the way, you can also use strings for this. It's okay. When do we want to deploy? On push, and then branches is going to be main. So on push to main, or when we merge something, we want this to run. What are going to be the jobs? First, we want to run, well, here is an interesting one. If, for example, you have a policy that you cannot push to main directly, but only by pull request, it means that the tests ran before you made a pull request. So like in main, by default, the tests are going to be working all the time. But if you have a privilege to push to main without pull request, then probably want to run the tests before the deployment happens. So we are going to assume that because we want to also show how we can make the jobs to depend one on another. So here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take from here this thing. So first I'm going to run the tests and then I'm going to do the deployment. So here, instead of build, let's name this test. And then I'm going to say that the name is going to be unit test, runs on Ubuntu latest, and then the steps. So all good. Now, on the same level with the test, I have to create new job, and let's name that distribute. We are going to put a name, distribute bundle to Google Play. And this is interesting. Now here we can use needs. And what does it need in order to run? So it will depend on my test. So before the test runs, this won't be able to run. And actually it's gonna require for the tests to pass first. If this job fails, and it's gonna fail if the tests are not running, then this is not gonna execute. That's how we can make them, how we can chain one job to another. And if I don't put this, all the jobs are gonna run in parallel. So that's the difference. Runs on, again, Ubuntu latest. Then we need to put the steps actually in the same level with runs on. Now, as of the steps, again, we have to check out the code. So first I'm going to say uses, let me take the same action to check out. Next, let's name this, well, we have to again do the same thing, like set up the JDK. For each and every job, we have to do that, but it treats them as separate instances. So even though they depend on one on another, at least that's my experience so far. What happens next? We want to do a version bump. Let me explain what I mean by that. If I open our build.gradle, here we are having version name and version code. What I want to do is I want to automate, because this version code for Google Play, what's important is to be always at least one more than the previous release. So let's say we are releasing version 1, the next release has to be at least version code 2. So it should increment all the time. And now what I'm going to do here, I am going to use the runner, the action number, because the runs of the actions is also being counted. So like 1, 2, 3, 4. So the actual run of the action on GitHub is going to be the number that I'm going to insert here. And that's going to be more than sufficient. Instead of version bump here, I have to use name version bump like that. And then I'm going to say uses. I'm going to copy paste. This is the action. So as I explained previously about the actions, some of the actions are predefined in GitHub, some of them are just registered, and this is one of them. So there is a domain like this. I don't dare to pronounce this. And then there is Android version actions, which is also having a version 1 to 3 now. So we are going to use that action to do the version bump. And then we have to define how we are going to do that. In the with block, we have to define what's the Gradle path. I think it's Gradle path like that. And our Gradle path is inside the app build Gradle KTS. So here we have to define app slash build.Gradle KTS like that. And then we have to define what's going to be the version code that we want to insert. Version code. I want to insert here, as I mentioned, the run number of the action. So I would say GitHub run number. Okay, that's gonna bump the version. And next, what we want to do is we want to assemble a bundle. I would say assemble. So the way we are gonna do is first we are gonna assemble the bundle, then we are gonna sign it. Because if we do that in the Android Studio, when we like the steps that we've done just a little bit ago, we have instructed Android Studio which key store to use, and it does generation and signature automatically for us, both of them. Here we have to do that manually. So first we want to assemble, release maybe. Bundle. For that, we are not going to use anything. We are just going to run a command in the shell. So we are going to do Gradle. So Gradle bundle release. Now that we have the bundle, what we want to do is we want to sign it. Sign release. And for this, we need to use an action. And the action that we are going to use is this one. And what we need to provide to it is where is going to be the release directory, where the bundle actually exists. We have to do release directory, and the directory is app slash build outputs bundle. What I recommend doing is going here and run this one. So when you are doing the script yourself, it would be better if you do this yourself and then see what's going to be the directory, because maybe you are having flavors. In this case we don't have, and maybe your main module is not called app, maybe it's something different. If you have those, if you have for example, flavors or something else, you want to execute also this command differently, maybe per flavor, like bundle, let's say the flavor name release. And if that's the case, I would suggest you doing that in your terminal here and then figure out where the release directory is. So here you are going to have output, bundle, release. So this is the directory that we are looking for. And if you're having flavors, probably this structure is going to change. So be aware of that. Then we need to do signing key base 64. Basically, what we need to do is we have to convert our key store, because it's a file now. Using base64, we have to make it as a text content and put it in GitHub. We are going to see just in a moment how to do that.
I was asking, I thought that Google Play from now on creates its own signing key, right? When you put the AAB in Google Play.
It does, but you cannot put their unsigned bundle. So you have to sign it yourself. They are also having on their own site another signature. So basically, it's like signatures on both sides.
Key store should be stored in the GitHub too, right?
That's what I'm going to be doing. But the key store is a file, and on GitHub, we can only store text. We can see how we are going to do that. Just
okay.
The way to access those is here by saying this is just a regular way to access anything in GitHub, like for example, GitHub run number, whatever. To access a secret, we can do secrets, and those are project specific. And then here you should put the name of the thing that you are going to be accessing. So let's imagine that we are having Android key store. We don't have it now, but that's going to be our value. How do we define those? So let's first define those. Maybe it's going to be a better thing to do. So back to our GitHub, go to the settings. And if you don't have permissions, like admin permissions for the project, this page is not going to be available for you. So if you are setting up in your working environment, for example, make sure you're having the admin rights, or somebody else can grant that to you at least to set up the project. Go to secrets and variables, actions, and here we can put repository secrets. That's what we need. So click on new repository secret. Here, the name that you will be putting is the name that we have added in our script. So Android key store here should be the same with here. What's the value? Now for the value, we need to basically convert our key store, the file, into text. And to do so, we can use base64. I don't remember the command from the top of my head, obviously. So I'm gonna go ahead and open cool.com Android devs, go to the classroom, continuous integration, and here it says repository setup. At the very bottom, we have the command, which is this one. I'm gonna copy. And now in my terminal, I'll go to my folder where we have the key store, and our key store is here. I'm gonna paste the command. So it is base64 minus I, my key store. So instead of my key store, I have to use the name of the actual key store, which is in this case, Android devs key store. Then minus O means output. And then where do we want to output that? In this case, I can say the keystore.txt, it's gonna create that file for me. Just enter, it's done. Now if I do cut on the keystore.txt, here is my keystore. So I can just take this and copy. Don't do this at home with a screen share because you don't want to expose this, and paste it here. Just add secret. What's important about the secrets here is that we can delete or edit those, but we cannot see them. We cannot click to open, and if you edit, it asks you to add a new value. Let's define other secrets while we are here. Another one was our keystore password. So let's put here keystore password and put the password there, the value. Let's put the alias, Android devs alias. Why I want to put Android devs alias? Because as I mentioned before, one keystore can have multiple aliases per application. So in one keystore, we can have multiple instances for multiple applications. So I want to name for which one is this one. It's going to be Android devs. And then Android devs alias password is going to be my password. Now that I have those, we can proceed with a script here. So we added the keystore. What else do we need? What's going to be the keystore password? Similarly, we can do that. So signing key, that's our keystore password. If I go back here, we can find what was the value that we have added, or the reference to the value, and we can insert it here. Next, what is the actual alias? Secrets, Android devs alias, and key password, Android devs alias password, like that. Next, we want to set up authorization with Google Play Store. And to do so, there are several ways to do it. One is by using Google GitHub Actions. They have their own authorization, and it's something like Google GitHub Actions /auth. And then we have to also provide version. But I haven't used this one. So if you want to, like when you're using an action, what you can do is just Google it this way, and then it's gonna give you all the documentation as to like how you can use it and how you can set up things like that. So here, for example, you have to pass project ID, work identity provider, whatever, blah, blah, blah. What I have used and what I'm gonna proceed here is get an authorization in a JSON file and put it in the secrets. So instead of an action, we are gonna do it differently. So no uses here, we are gonna run a command in the shell. So what we need to do is, we are gonna get that JSON authorization. We're gonna see how in a moment. It's a JSON file, imagine, and then it's gonna live in our secrets. What we need to do in this step, we need to get that value that we're gonna put in the secrets and create a service account.json file while this executes. So during the execution, we are going to create that file, and later on, we are going to use that file to authorize. We are going to store it as a value, and during the execution, it's going to create temporal file while execution, use that file for authorization. Then when the runtime is completed, it's going to delete the file that it created. So what we want to do here is run echo, and then the command that we want to run is, we want to take from our secrets, play out JSON, and we want to insert it into a file called, let's say, service account.json. Now, this one is something that we don't have in our secrets. Let's go ahead and create it. So what's the value here? If you go to my tutorial here in school, what I was suggesting for the Google Play authorization, back in the days, there was an API access item in Google Play that would lead you to the place that we are gonna go, but they removed it. So they no longer have this. So if I go to Google Play console, they have removed that from here. We will also have to define here the application that we are building. But before we do that, let's go to our cloud. You go first to this IAM, and here we want to create a new project for the new thing that we are doing. There is no button here to create a project. I have to click on this item here, Google Play Android Developer, and create a new project. And then this is gonna be named Android Devs App. I have no organizations, but if you're in an organization, you may have to have some permissions in order to create projects, and they may grant you access only in a sub project or something like that. Let's create this. Now I have the project. What you need to do next is go to service accounts, and we need to create a service account. Okay. An app for Android devs community. Create and continue. Now here we can select a role. What do we want? This thing that we are doing, this service account. Think about this. We have created a project, and now we are creating a service account. What this service account should be able to do? What are the permissions that we want to grant? So we want to actually grant permissions to deploy to Google Play. That's the only thing that we need. Here, as you can see, there are like tons of things that we can use. Because we don't have too much time, we are just gonna say owner, and then it's gonna have all the privileges. But you can give tons of things to restrict permissions if you need to. You can give another conditions and so on and so forth. Okay, now we have it. Android Devs App, add something. So that's what we needed. That should be in the service account. Now click on it, go to keys, and we have to add a key. So we need to generate new key. And here we need to select JSON, which is also the recommended way. What's important is, as it says here, download a file that contains the private key, but it cannot be recovered if lost. So you have to keep it secret if you want to keep this file. But because I'm gonna put it on GitHub, I don't need to have a copy locally. Now it got downloaded. Here it is. I'm gonna drop it inside. Now we are done with this. We no longer need this. We can close it. Back to my terminal. This is the JSON file. So just take this, copy, and then back to our project on GitHub, we're gonna paste that value and add it as a secret. Now again, I gave admin or owner permissions. Just be aware for your situation that you may not want to do that. But now I have that play out JSON, and now we are pretty good to go and complete the script. So here, that's gonna create a file, and now all we need to do is now use action to authorize ourselves with Google and actually do the deployment. So what we need to do here is deploy bundle to Google Play, uses, and now I'm gonna put the action that I'm gonna use. Also, just like any other action, if you go to Google and Google it, it's gonna open the GitHub page and it's gonna tell you what you can do with it or how to utilize, how to use it, and what's the latest version as well. So here it is 1.1.3, and yeah, if you read the documentation, you will understand how you can use it. But here it is 1.1.3. We can see what are the things that we have to provide. First, we need to provide the service account JSON. If we search here, you see they have service account JSON plain text. Here is service account JSON. So if you want to use service account JSON plain text, we don't need this step because this step is going to create a JSON file. We can directly pass here the value of secrets play out JSON. I see that this one was added recently. It was not there when I was using this action before, and that's why I had to go with creating a JSON file. And now here I have to supply this basically. What's the name of the file? So that's our JSON file. Then what's going to be the package name? The package name is the name of the package of the application. So if I go to build.gradle, this is the package name. Next, we need to provide the release files, or what's the actual file that we want to use. Now again, if we check the directory, it should be the same that we have supplied here. And then here we also have to put the app release AAB, the actual file. Then which track do we want to use? Now here we have few options. If we go to the documentation track, we can also see defaults to production, but you can see what are the available tracks on Google Play yourself. I'm gonna use internal, or in fact, I don't need to put it in quotes. It should work like that. And then what's gonna be the status? It defaults to completed. But if you want to, let's say, deploy a drop, or if you want to use this API in some sort of automation that's going to halt releases or those kind of things, those are the statuses that you're going to use. If I just don't put any status, it's going to default to completed. But if you do want to put something like draft here, this is the way to do that. So let's put it back to completed. And finally, let's maybe imagine that you are going to have some sort of other script or automation that is going to create release notes for you. So those release notes are going to go automatically to Google Play. So here you can also define that. What's new directory, and yeah, this is the way to do that. And here it defines how it should look like. So our what's new directory is gonna be like what's new, and it should exist in the root. So this directory what's new, we have to create it. Let's create it. And now inside we can put as many, like if you support multiple languages, like if your release notes are in multiple languages, you have to list file per language inside this folder. In this case, for example, let's say we have only English, then the file name is going to be what's new dash, what's the language, EN, and then let's say UK or US, depends on what language do you want to put there. So this is a standard that comes from this, the locale. So if you search BCP47, that's the thing. And now here we can say whatever the release is going to be. And we are pretty much done. So that's going to deploy to Google Play. Now what we can do is we can run this and see if we have some mistakes somewhere. But let's first delete all these empty lines, because maybe the script is not going to work at all if there are empty lines, because it is fragile on wrong indentation. Now what I'm going to do is I'll go back to my Git and I'm going to say introduced script for deployments to Google Play. Let's push this, and since I'm pushing to main, it should run automatically this script. And I would expect it to fail on the deployment because we haven't specified application on Google Play. So let's watch this fail and let's see the failure. But as you can see here, because the jobs are dependent on each other, first we have the unit tests that are running, and once they are done, we are going to have the distribution steps. I would wait for this to see it in action. And after we see that there is a failure, the last step to do is define the application on Google Play. And when that's done, we have to do the initial deployment ourselves. And the initial deployment is going to be our AAB. First of all, we have two jobs. One is test, another is distribute. So distribute needs test. And that's the chain that we have created. So first this has to pass in order for this one to run. That's how we are chaining those. If I remove this needs test, then they're gonna run in parallel. That's not what I want. Now here we are also executing commands to actually create bundle, like this one, Gradle bundle release. If I used to have flavors, then it's gonna be bundle flavor release. And then it's gonna create output into different folder, which is gonna be app build output slash flavor slash bundle slash release. So if you're having flavors, be aware of that. What I would encourage you to do is run this command, open the terminal, run it, run the command that you want to do. Because if you do bundle release, it's gonna do bundles for all the flavors, which is not bad. It's okay. And then you can find where they are in the build, output, the exact path that you need in this script. So if you run locally, it's gonna create the whole structure and then you can put the correct path here as well. Now the test has passed. And what we have here is basically running the other steps. Version bump happened, assemble bundle, it did assemble a bundle. We ran that command locally too. There was no problem. And we saw in which directory the bundle was created. We signed the release, the signature worked. There is a warning, we have to see what's the warning. Then we set up authorization, that one also passed. What didn't work was uploading to Google Play. And if you look into it, it says Google Play Android Developer API has not been used in project before, or it is disabled. I mean, the error essentially says that the API is not enabled. We have to enable it. So it's not only about defining it, but we also have to enable it. So just by clicking that link, it brings me to the cloud where I have defined previously the project. And as we can see here, it is also selected first. It just says, okay, you're trying to use Google Play Developer API and it's not enabled. So just have to enable it. Just by clicking on that enable button, it should do the job for us. Now it is enabled. If I go back now and rerun, I can rerun the failed jobs. And then it should have different error telling me that I couldn't deploy because there is no such application or such package on Google Play yet. When we get to that stage, then we can switch to Google Play console and do the work that is required there. Essentially, we haven't defined the application on Google Play yet. The Google Play has no idea about our application. What we need to do is define it, create new app, and there is a lot of administration that we have to do there, like requirements. Once we have that, we have to make a manual deployment, and only then this automation is going to work. This is the error that I was expecting. It says creating new edit for this release package not found, NL job meet Android devs. So that's the package of our application. We have to now specify that on Google Play. So here I'm gonna go to the Google Play console. And right now I do have two applications that are published by me before, and we are about to create a new one. So here, just click on the create app and let's name it Android Devs Community App, or maybe just Android Devs. And then we are gonna add a description. The default language is English US. Is it an app? Paid or free? It's free. Then we have to declare that we agree to this. Let's create the app and boom, there we go. So we want to deploy to internal. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, create new release, because we have to make the first shipping of the app manually. Here, it gives us an option whether we want Google Play to manage the second part of the signature or we want to do that manually on our own, which is more risky. I would always suggest actually letting Google Play to do that on their side. So then if we end up losing key or if we end up in a need that we need to recover the signing key or something, we're going to have support. Otherwise, if you lose it, it's lost. So here I'm going to use Google generated key and then this error, well, warning should vanish. And now that we have the release assigned by Google Play, that's most, I think, appropriate solution. Just upload. And now I'm going to upload our bundle that we have created before. So if I go to Android Devs, this is the AAB. What I noticed is that the first time it does a little bit more because then it processes the bundle and then it does the signature and it stores the signature, so it takes a little bit more time. So the next times it takes less, but also like you're not making manual deployments any longer. This is the first and the only time. It says release name 1, cool. Here we can just say initial internal release. We can leave it empty as well, it's not a problem. Then I can save and publish, but let me see what are these 3 warnings here. So there are some declarations that we have to do. And it says this release will not be available to any users because you haven't specified any testers for it yet. So configure your testing track to ensure that the release is available to your testers. But it's a warning. It's still not a requirement. So I can keep publishing the app into internal track until I decide to promote it to, let's say, alpha or beta testing. When I decide to do that, I need some testers, it seems. And also, we can additionally set up deobfuscation. So when we make an APK or a bundle, because it gets obfuscated, it also creates a little file in the output, which can be used for deobfuscation. Why is that needed? It is that so when application crashes, it can deobfuscate the classes and you can see where the crash happened. You can see the exception in a better way. Otherwise, it's going to be encrypted thing like ABC, whatever, and then you don't know what actually happened. Now I save and publish. And when it comes to those warnings, you can still go and fix them here in the policy status or in app content, like all those things we have to declare. And probably we are going to declare them. But just before we do so, I'm going to rerun again to see if it's going to pass. So now because it is rerunning from where it left off, I think it might not pass because it is not going to increase the version number. Because we are rerunning, if it reuses the same number, the runner, it's going to fail again. But that's fine. Then we can merge something else. It's going to kick this workflow again, which will deploy to Google Play. I would like to cover a little bit more on the Google Play internals. I don't know everything, but at least the things that I know, I can share because they were pain in the ass recently. So it will be maybe helpful for people to understand at least the things that I understand. So if you want to move to promote this, like we can promote it to other tracks, currently to alpha, for example, or to open testing or to production. We don't have any other custom tracks, which is also possible to do. But it is really important to complete the store presence, which is the so-called main store listing. Here we define what's the application about, like name, description. We have to put the icon, privacy policy has to be there or somewhere here. And I think it was a requirement to put a link of a privacy policy. Maybe they moved it into the app content, but this is also important. Without this, we won't be able to ship or release. If we go here to the dashboard, it's gonna tell us like the production is inactive and this is only a draft application. So maybe this workflow is going to fail because, okay, creating new edit for this release, the color does not have permission. I think I know what's the problem. So this is an email and here I think we have to go to users and permissions. Here I have granted access to these two accounts. So I should invite a user and paste there this. And I can also set to expire and then I can also give some permissions. For example, disable all and I can say only create, edit and make only draft applications. I can choose how much access do I want for this service account basically. I'm gonna give admin, invite user. So this is gonna link them automatically. As we can see, it automatically gets into active state here. Okay, now rerun. And while we are waiting for this, let's work a little bit on Google Play. So this is a temporary app because it is not reviewed. And in order to send it for review, we need to complete all of these steps here. So let's actually start off by figuring out what are the privacy policies. Generate app privacy policy Android. Oh, this is an open source. Maybe this is the one. App name, Android devs. Free, next, Android, individual, Google Play services. We don't have anything just yet. Cool. So get link, and then back here, I'm gonna put the link, save, and let's go to the next thing. Functionality is available without any restrictions. So we don't have, actually the app does have a login, but it doesn't talk to any backend just yet. Does your app contain ads? No. Then content rating. So here we have to say whether this application is for kids, whatever. Social and communication. No, social is to communicate, post and share content. I mean, we don't know yet, but at least we know what we are planning. No. No physical location. No selling inside. Not yet. Not yet. We have to save first, I think, and then click next. Cool. Okay, now it gives us a summary and then we can agree or disagree to this. So yeah, it has a lot of things to do. But anyway, we have to wait for this. And now the deployment. Yeah, so this is the error that I was expecting. So it says only releases with status draft may be created on draft app. That's because we have a draft app in Google Play currently, and we have to fill out this questionnaire in order to be able to submit that for a review. And then once reviewed, it's not going to be draft any longer. And then we'll be able to publish. Let's say 18 and over. Go to publishing overview, not now. News, no. This one is big. So we have to say, what do we collect? How do we collect it? Does your application collect or share any of the required user data types? I'm gonna click no for now, although I know that I'll have to set up everything if I need to publish. It's not a government app. Finances, no. And health, also no health here. We're almost there. Select app category to provide. Okay. App, let's say education maybe. Phone number, I'm not gonna leave. school.com/Android devs. Save and publish. Yeah, we have to set up our store listing. So I think that's the last thing that we have to do in order to move it from draft. Short description. Yeah, we need to create app icon. The way I do that usually in my app module, new image asset, and then I have to select something. Maybe I can select our logos, circular, this one, boom. something like this, or maybe make it a bit smaller. And then in the background, select a color, and then we are gonna pick this. I think this is gonna do a good job. So just finish here, and it's gonna create this. Open in Finder, copy it into the desktop, and then upload. Okay, feature graphics. Yeah, we have to make some screenshots now. Okay, so then maybe run on emulator. I don't know about that banner, how I'm gonna create that banner. Maybe go to Figma. Yeah, we're gonna generate a banner. So first, yeah, go to Studio to make some screenshots. So this, save desktop. I think we need, I don't remember how many, but we needed 2 or 3. Turn off the dark mode and make another screenshot, save desktop. Okay, back. Yeah, this is 1024 by 500. So here we can do 1024 by 500, and then just put the same color and take this, bring to front, boom, we have a banner. Now I'm gonna export this to PNG. So back here, and we have a banner. Video we don't have, screenshots, upload. These two are enough to get started. This should be enough. Yeah, we do need to put some testers here. I'm gonna select some testers that I already have. This is auto-generated, I don't know what it is. It seems something like from Google Play itself. And now, if you go to the publishing overview, there is still something missing in the app dashboard. Okay. Okay, just select everything. Go to publishing overview. Advertising ID, complete declaration. So does your app use advertising ID? No, not yet. Yeah. And now we can send it for review. Oof, that was a journey. I knew it's gonna take us a little while, but at least, like, there are a lot of things, and this is only for the first time. I think afterwards you have to update 1 or 2 things as they are changing. Like, for example, you add authorization with username and password, you have to supply item to Google to tell them how they can log into your application in order to test. Or you start collecting emails, you have to declare that. Those are the things that you have to change over time. And it's still temporal because it is unreviewed. And once they review and once they approve, then we're gonna be able to use our script. From now on, what we can do is we can just integrate code into our main branch, and when we push, new release is gonna come to the internal testing. So we are gonna try that once this review is over. And now that the review is done, it is sort of approved to be on Google Play. Previously it was draft, and now the automation can actually deploy. So the automation deploys to the internal testing track. So when we merge some code into a main branch and push it, it triggers the automation, it runs the tests, it makes a build size and sends it here in the internal testing. From here, we can decide to promote it to production or wherever we want. And now if we do any change in the code and we merge into main, it's gonna publish to Google Play. What should we change? Instead of login, we can do login. And plus the application names, I have 2 changes here. Let's commit this with something like improve copy, push. Now if I go back to our actions, new action is gonna run. We can start looking at something else and then come back to this because this is gonna take a while. Basically, it's gonna run the tests, and if tests are passing, it will start the deployment process. With Bitrise, I do have quite a lot of experience, I would say. Under the hood, Bitrise is pretty similar to GitHub Actions. However, they are giving you easier setup because they have sort of interface on top. And then in the web interface, you can store your credentials like the key store, alias, password, those things. And then they have predefined actions. If I open Studio here, this is our release script. So this, for example, thing is like one item in your Bitrise. So you can just drag and drop, and you are defining a pipeline, top to bottom. Or this one, checkout. You have an action that's gonna check out the code. Then you can say bump version or make a build, sign. You can drag and drop the steps and set up the parameters of the steps on that web interface. It's nice, it's really nice, but it comes with a price. It's not free to use Bitrise. GitHub Actions, on the other hand, it is free. However, you have to manage the YAML script yourself. There is no web interface. Essentially, Bitrise is also under the hood having a YAML script. Like, it builds YAML script when you set up these steps, but you don't work with the YAML script directly. You work with the web interface. So those are the pros and cons. The job went through, got completed. The deployment went through to Google Play. Now, if we go to Google Play in the internal testing track, we are gonna see that the deployment just happened. So this is today, about this time, 3 minutes ago. So cool. That should conclude everything about CI/CD that we have started, and now we are having an automation.